On a cold January morning, Oprah Winfrey sat at her desk, flipping through notes for her upcoming show. Her assistant stood nearby, listing potential guests and segment ideas, but Oprah's mind was elsewhere. The weather outside was dreary, with a soft drizzle tapping against the window, adding to the heavy atmosphere in the room. As she absent-mindedly sipped her herbal tea, a sudden news alert flashed across the television mounted on the wall, its shrill tone cutting through the silence. The anchor's somber voice filled the space. Breaking news: Marcus Tanner, a decorated war veteran, remains imprisoned despite mounting evidence of his wrongful conviction. Advocates are calling for immediate action as the story gains national attention. Oprah's eyes snapped to the screen as a black-and-white photo of Marcus appeared. His face was proud but weathered, his eyes shadowed by the years of unjust imprisonment. His military record scrolled by, detailing his numerous tours overseas, his bravery in combat, and the commendations he had received. Yet it was the stark headline that caught Oprah's full attention. Forgotten hero, veteran imprisoned for life without evidence. She felt the familiar pang of outrage, but this was different. This wasn't just another tragic story of injustice. It felt like a betrayal on a deeper, more personal level. A man who had risked his life to serve his country had been left to rot in a prison cell, abandoned by the very system that he had pledged to defend. Oprah's heart tightened. "Cancel my afternoon schedule," she said, her voice sharp with determination, as she set her teacup down with a firm clink. Her assistant blinked in surprise. "Are you sure? You have back-to-back meetings." "I said cancel everything," Oprah insisted, her gaze already fixed on the screen. "I need to look into this. Now." In a matter of minutes, Oprah was on the phone with her research team. "Find me everything you can on Marcus Tanner," she directed. "Court records, military files, news reports. I want every detail. And get in touch with his legal team, if he has one." As her team scrambled into action, Oprah leaned back in her chair, her thoughts racing. She had witnessed countless stories of injustice over the years, but something about Marcus's case felt different. There was an unmistakable sense of something being deeply wrong here, an unshakable feeling that Marcus had been wronged on a level far beyond what the public knew. She couldn't explain it, but she knew she had to uncover the truth. This was more than just another story. It was a mission. The drive to the state penitentiary was long and quiet, the snow thickening on the ground, blanketing the world in a quiet, somber white. The skeletal trees along the road looked like ghostly figures, frozen in time. As Oprah stared out of the window, she was used to facing difficult situations, but the weight of what she was about to uncover pressed heavily on her chest. This wasn't just about exposing a miscarriage of justice. It was about standing up for a man who had been abandoned by everyone, including the country he had fought for. The prison loomed ahead, its iron gates cold and imposing, a harsh reminder of the lives confined within. Oprah's jaw tightened as she passed through a series of steel doors, each one slamming shut behind her with a resonating echo. The air was thick, laden with the smell of confinement and loss. She was led through winding corridors until she finally arrived at the visitation room, where Marcus Tanner was waiting. When Marcus rose to greet her, his movements were slow and stiff, his body worn from years of hard labor and restricted movement. Despite the toll his imprisonment had taken on him, there was a quiet strength in his eyes, a spark of dignity that had survived the years of injustice. "Mr. Tanner," Oprah greeted him warmly, her voice gentle but filled with determination. She extended her hand. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Marcus hesitated, his rough hands brushing against his face, before finally shaking her hand. "You're Oprah Winfrey," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to listen to your story," Oprah said, her eyes filled with compassion. "And if what I've heard is true, I'm here to help you get the justice you deserve." Marcus's gaze flickered between hope and skepticism, a wariness born of years of disappointment. "No one's wanted to hear my story in years," he muttered. "But if you're willing to listen, I'll tell you everything." And for the next 2 hours, Marcus did just that. He recounted the events that had led to his wrongful conviction. During his final deployment, he had been accused of causing the disappearance of a fellow soldier, a charge he vehemently denied. Despite his protests, a swift court-martial had sealed his fate. Key witnesses had mysteriously disappeared, and crucial evidence had gone missing. The military had abandoned him, leaving Marcus to serve a life sentence in a maximum security prison. "I fought for this country," Marcus said bitterly, the weight of the years in his voice. "And when I needed someone to fight for me, they all turned their backs." Oprah's heart ached as she listened to him. This wasn't just about a wrongful conviction. It was about the devastating loss of trust in the very system that should have protected him. There was an unbearable silence in the room as Marcus finished speaking, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "I'm going to help you," Oprah promised, her voice steady and filled with resolve. "I don't know how yet, but I will. This isn't the end of your story." In the weeks that followed, Oprah launched a full-scale investigation. She enlisted a team of legal experts, private investigators, and journalists, all dedicated to uncovering the truth behind Marcus Tanner's case. They scoured military records, interviewed former comrades, and dug through old evidence, all while tracing the trail of missing witnesses. As they peeled back layer after layer of the case, the disturbing truth began to emerge. Marcus had been framed in order to protect a high-ranking officer's career. The cover-up was elaborate, but Oprah's team refused to back down. As the investigation gained momentum, the media caught wind of the story, and the public quickly rallied behind Marcus. Social media exploded with hashtags calling for his exoneration. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, demanding justice for the forgotten hero. Yet, despite the overwhelming evidence, the prosecution stubbornly refused to reopen the case. Oprah, unwilling to let the injustice continue, decided to take the matter to national television. "How can you sleep at night knowing an innocent man is locked behind bars?" she demanded of the lead prosecutor, her voice a mixture of controlled anger and deep frustration. "Where is your sense of justice?" Under the mounting pressure of public outrage, the case was finally brought before a judge. The courtroom was packed with reporters, activists, and Marcus's family, who had never given up hope. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone holding their breath as the judge reviewed the new evidence. Oprah sat beside Marcus, her heart racing as the gavel hovered in the air, poised to deliver the verdict. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge's gavel struck the bench. "The court finds sufficient evidence to overturn Marcus Tanner's conviction. Mr. Tanner, you are hereby exonerated of all charges and will be released immediately." The courtroom erupted in jubilation. Marcus's family burst into tears, and strangers embraced one another in joy. Marcus stood frozen in place, unable to fully comprehend what had just happened. Oprah moved toward him and wrapped him in a strong, comforting hug, her eyes brimming with tears of relief. "You're free," Oprah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's over." As they exited the courthouse into the cold winter air, the world outside seemed somehow brighter, as if the very air had shifted. Reporters rushed to interview Marcus, but he only had eyes for his family. His daughter, now a grown woman, ran into his arms, crying uncontrollably as she clung to him. In the following days, Marcus's story became a national symbol of resilience, hope, and justice. Oprah's tireless dedication to uncovering the truth had not only freed an innocent man, but had also reignited a national conversation about the failures of the justice system. The victory was monumental, but Oprah knew that the battle wasn't over yet. Weeks later, as Oprah sat in her office, looking at a framed photograph of Marcus and his family, all smiling beneath a bright winter sky, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just a personal victory for her. It was a reminder of why she had embarked on her journey in the first place. It wasn't just about telling stories, it was about making a real difference in the world, about standing up for those who couldn't fight for themselves. As she gazed out the window at the gentle snowfall, Oprah made a promise to herself. The fight for justice was far from over. She would continue to speak for the voiceless, to uncover the hidden truths, because sometimes all it took was one story to change everything. And Marcus Tanner's story was just the beginning.